plenty has happened for Ohio State since we last convened at Roosters, which is a fun, casual joint, and we were in the Horseshoe Lounge, the new and temporary home, but it's going to be here. We're going to be here a while on Henderson Road.
We're going to be here. We got everything.
So the signs are up. Jay-Z's up there.
Extended stay.
Yeah. Extended stay. We are here. We're talking about Ohio State. Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, Bill Landis. I am Austin Ward. The Buckeyes have a starting quarterback. They have a block O.
Yep.
They have 4 captains.
Yes.
Yep.
Goodness. And they have 12 days until they get to play their first game. So which one of those things is most important? Probably quarterback, right, Bob?
Yeah, I would say the quarterback is probably the most important. I know you guys have probably rapped about that on the daily already.
We have, but you guys are pretty important too. So
yeah, I think I wouldn't say it seemed like a foregone conclusion because I know there was battling going on, and I watched Devin throw some really nice balls. Julian Sayin looked really good at times. I think Will was probably the most consistent guy of the group, and that's what you would expect of a guy who's started multiple years and is in his 5th year of college, is 23 years old, and has looked very good for the vast majority of the time, and then also has been very consistent over that time. So I think it was, I don't know if it was, I would say expected.
Right.
If it wasn't Will, I think it would have been a little bit of an upset. Nothing crazy, not, App State beating Michigan, but maybe a small upset of sorts,
I think it would have been a huge upset, an expensive one as well.
Here's the thing: I'm not going to include the dollars for it because once Bill Belichick's thing is like once you pay the guy, you've already paid him. Like you play the best players, so you can lament that decision and mistake to have brought a guy in the portal, but you brought him in to compete, and if he didn't win, I would like to believe that's because Devin or Julian or Lincoln, one of the guys played really, really well, and that's why he got outplayed. If he came in and played poorly, then I think that would have been a mistake, but I don't think he's played poorly during this entire time.
Yeah, it's listening to him talk about the spring and just felt like he had a fire hose coming at him, with all the everything they're throwing at him then, and to see his transformation. I mean, he dropped a bunch of weight, looked really good coming into camp. He talked about how he was working on some things in the off season or in the summertime, feeling more comfortable throwing the ball downfield, that sort of thing. I mean, he seems like he's coming into camp. He seemed like he was going to be the guy, and I think that's just the way you got to go. We talked about it all the time. He's got that experience. He's been through a lot of big games, not in Columbus per se, not in maybe the cold weather, but he's been in some big games, and he's played well. So
it's not that tropical in Manhattan.
Well, he's from northern Philly, like suburbs, so he's like a northern guy. So it's not all that bad. Is he from your hometown?
He's from Downingtown. Yeah, it's west of Philly. Yeah,
they don't get credit for real Philly. We have to go to the.
He's definitely not.
He didn't say he was a Philly guy.
No, he didn't claim it.
But he has a 484 area code. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, I didn't realize. I'm like, how did he get this? Procure this?
Well, never mind then. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
cold weather's nothing for him.
So why didn't Ryan recruit you the first time around? And he's like, well, that's another story for another day.
That's right.
Figure that out.
There you go.
Kind of nobody did, right? Like I think Kansas State were one of his few.
Yeah, that's what he had kind of alluded to. Is that no one? He's like, I was a 2-3 star. No one recruited me.
Underdog story.
That's right.
Jay-Z, this did though happen relatively quickly, at least by Ryan Day standards. So I know that you appreciate that.
Based off of last year anyway. It went under the third game.
But I mean, not even.
And actually, last week he said I made the wrong decision. I thought this was going to be the guy.
No, it was amazing.
Whoa. He didn't say he made the wrong decision.
I know. I put that in there.
But probably of all the things that were said during this quarterback competition, the fact that he said this time last year we thought it was going to be Devin, I think that was something that was like,
huh?
What?
Yeah, because as soon as Kyle started the game, it felt like you did not want to take him out. So.
It was just, and he's like, well, when Kyle started playing really well, and I heard that, I was like, hold on, rewind. Like, let's ask some more follow-ups about that conversation and what changed at that point where there was so much momentum for Devin Brown and why that kind of changed and what happened there.
Yeah, but I
think he answered that, though. He said turning the football over and consistent accuracy. Like, we don't need to belabor 2023 any more than we've already done.
It'd be laboring.
Yeah, it would. I don't want to do
labor on labor.
But even compared not just to last year, but to Justin Fields or C.J. Stroud, this was the earliest that Ryan Day had done that.
Yeah, it's early. I love it as far as a quarterback's mentality. I think it just, whatever you want to call it, just helps the quarterback saying, all right, you're our guy. And so he's going to be freed up going out to practice. You're not thinking about every little mistake because you've been named the starter and you're going to have to play really badly in season to get taken out. It just, it's a confidence builder. It's everything for a quarterback. You just knowing that you got the confidence of your coach, your offensive coordinator, your team. Ryan's talked about him being in the huddle and just, how they kind of feel his experience and just him. He's been there before, and they're just buying into it. So I think it's huge. 12 days to go. He's going to have, the last end of camp to really find things up and get ready for the season.
Is there anything that stood out to you about the way Ryan Day talked about the whole battle, the whole depth chart, Bill?
Just that it was so definitive when he said it, which I think we talked about at the time. There was no wishy-washiness about it. And if you watch,
he did say Will's going to start against Akron.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that is. I think that's just not wanting to jinx yourself. I think more than anything else, and you always want to foster the air of competition, right? But I think
foster the air.
Yeah,
of competition.
I think
waft it.
Just get it up in the olfactory.
It smells like mozzarella sticks.
That's right, it does. That one mozzarella stick has an appendage to it.
Yes, I was looking at that.
I'm surprised Jay-Z hasn't grabbed that one already.
Yes.
There was so much uncertainty. Even in naming the quarterback, again, we're not trying to relitigate last year. It was never just like, this is our guy, let's go. And like that, the declaration of Will Howard very much felt like that, and it was earned, I think, from everything that we saw and everything we've heard. That should have been the case. But I'm glad that it was. There was no we'll see what Devin can do. And it's a long season. We got
a few games early on, and we're going to play both of them.
I didn't want to hear any of that. I'm glad we didn't. Yeah.
So over under 9 drives for Will Howard.
Against
the first game? 9 drives?
Surely he won't need that many.
I'm just saying. I mean,
I'll take
Akron's offense is going to be pretty bad, so I think it's going to be a lot of 3 plays and punt it back to Ohio State. So
okay, so that's why
I could see him getting 7-8 drives in the first half. So
and then come out 1 for halftime. That's why I said it.
Yeah, it's a good number. Yeah, I probably,
Austin just said it wasn't. Surely he won't need that many. I said I'm not sure.
Well, if we score on all the first 8, he might
scores on 6 out of the first 8. That should be good enough.
Just go ahead and get some young guys get some action.
49 points and a half before against Michigan State, but they still brought everybody out for 1 drive at halftime.
That's true, but here's the part that is sticking in my mind, Bob. If Ryan Day is spending all this time talking about 16 games, playing depth, that has to include the quarterback.
It does. No, I'm talking about everybody. I know that coaches do not like to have guys go in and shut it down at halftime. They like to have the process of going in, going through.
You got to get ready to go.
At least come out, give me one.
Mm-hmm.
Give me one series. Give me a good one.
Let's go out being crisp, and we'll get you off the field right after that.
So you think it could be over 9?
I think 9's probably the number. Is what I mean. If you have 7 in the first half, I think it hits the under. If you have 8 in the first half, I think it's 9 or more. We'll say 8.5.
Okay, so then what happens from there, Bob? Because
Devin Brown, that's my point. So Devin comes in then? Is that the thought? Because he said he was number 2.
Well,
but there's still some competition going on there.
He said that there was still going to be an ongoing competition. I personally have a hard time seeing how Devin Brown is not the backup quarterback for this team. I think that he needs to be in terms of his physical maturity, time in the program, ability to do some similar things to Will Howard, though Ryan Day said there was a significant gap between the two of them. But he said Julian Sayin was right in that mix. He's talked about Lincoln Kienholz. It does feel like Aaron Nolan is a little bit separate from that conversation with the development year. I don't know. Do you think there's a chance that Devin Brown is not the backup quarterback for this team?
Well, I'm just who goes in second? And then how much does he play? How much does Julian get in?
Right.
How much does the more entertaining thing to me over the first 3 games, because hopefully the first halves of those games aren't entertaining. They're more of an exhibition, kind of the Washington Generals, Harlem Globetrotters feel.
Sometimes those would get competitive just to keep you locked in.
Yeah,
just for the crowd.
I want to see
showman.
Then what that rep split looks like, and then how the other guys come in and how they look. Are you going to give Devin Brown? Do you leave the offensive line in for a series with Devin Brown and the first team skill guys? In game 2, is it Julian that week? And he's like, well, it's open. We're just rotating, trying to figure some things out. Those are the things. Is it going to be performance based, or is it just going to say, hey, we're going to each give guy that first rack here after?
And also, what kind of offense are you going to run with them in? Because you're going to have a big score, you're going to have a big lead, so you're not probably going to push the ball downfield. But you want to see these younger guys. Devin's not younger, I guess, but the guys who haven't had that ton of experience do that kind of stuff.
Was it Kyle that had come in a game but had never thrown a pass?
Did
CJ?
No,
CJ had come in, but
Kyle had a start.
Yeah, that's right. But there was one when CJ came in, I think it was against Michigan State as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that long touchdown run.
Yeah, but he didn't throw a pass.
Never threw a pass.
So I mean, like when you're up 56-3, I mean, you got how much you gonna air it out?
But you got on the other
Ryan's
side of
not-
it though, you almost have to because you got to. I mean, we got a long season. We're talking about it. We got to have our backups ready to throw the ball downfield if somehow they need to go in there. So it's going to be one of those things like, do we just run this? Do we just run this up and get these guys, the experience that we want them to have, not just handing the ball off, being out in front of everybody.
You think the door is open there for Julian Sayin, Bill?
Yeah, I do. I could see like a rotation there. I don't. Maybe it has to. You can't, I guess, dictate exactly how those first 3 weeks are going to play out. But I think it's reasonable to expect you're going to have some lopsided advantages in the second half. If you go in with a plan and say like, okay, Devin's going to get most of the second half of the first one, Julian's going to get most of the second half of the next one. But I think you have to talk about Lincoln Keenholz there too, because I believe that they still see a future for him as well, right? Mm-hmm. So kind of have, and like if you don't get air like significant time, I don't think that's unreasonable. Like to try to play 2 true freshmen, that's you have 5 scholarship quarterbacks, but if you have 3 guys who are as backups to Will, who you want to try to play and want to see what you have, because even Devin's not played that much, right? Like I think Devin's attempted like 30 passes in his career. It's not a large body of work. So I think you want to rotate all 3. Maybe if you like get a whole second half of backups, you can go quarter. But I think we'll see at least 2, if not 3 guys kind of share second team in game reps over the first couple of games of the season.
How much thought will go into that, you think, Bob? Because it does help.
That's what I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out.
that's a big question.
So I want to know
How do you do it?
those will be the questions that'll be asked, especially if Will comes out there and is 14 of 18 or 14 of 17 for 220 and 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, no picks, clean half, like he looks really efficient. I mean, he's not going to have probably crazy numbers because ideally he's not playing more than 9 drives, but he should look really efficient, look very polished. Their offense should look good. And then after that, it's, well, are these guys going to, is it this week this guy, this week the next guy? Is next week's dependent upon the game and practice? How that looks like? I'm not sure what the best way to do that. I don't know what that plan should look like.
Right.
But I know that there needs to be a plan to win. And there needs to be that plan moving forward because should something happen, you want to make sure you have the right guy ready to go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that might be even what's that offensive line they're going to be playing in front of or behind look like. Mm-hmm. Because you're putting Julian in there. He could use a year and mix, weight room, put some weight on. He's not as big as the other 2, as physical. So if they're thinking, we don't want to sit him out there and just let him get his butt kicked if we're going to actually let him throw the ball. I mean, I think that may play into what they do and how they kind of mix guys around.
Well, they did settle on 4 guys to lead this team. There are 4 captains.
The legends and leaders.
You can call them whatever you want. I don't like legends and leaders.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Just call them offense and defense. Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Cody Simon, who is the block O, and Jack Sawyer. Bob, any surprises there for you?
Not really. I mean, on defense, I thought Cody would be. I thought some combination of JT, Jack, Cody, and Lathan. 2 or 3 of those 4 would be it. Mm-hmm. And then when they announced it, the way that it went, they did offense first, then defense. And I think Jack was the last guy they mentioned. And maybe they did Cody, then Emeka and Trey. I was surprised maybe, and there was only 3 other guys maybe 3. I think Denzel obviously carry weight. It's tough to have multiple guys at the same position group just because that's how the electoral college of position groups votes out. Like you only have so many votes. Guys kind of vote for one guy within their room. Offensively, I could have seen Donovan Jackson being in there as kind of the offensive line representative. Defensively, maybe Lathan and Denzel were 2 other guys. And then Will Howard, your quarterback typically is that. But when you're in a quarterback battle, it's tough to kind of have that guy be a captain when there's still some split in leadership, and not in a bad way. It's just the multiple voices that you're hearing in the huddle. I think all those guys are good choices. I think the evolution that Trey has made from his sophomore year to now has been nothing short of remarkable. Mm-hmm. And, his sophomore year, I did not think he would be here for more than 3 regardless of what happened. And honestly, there was a part of me, I was like, I don't care if this guy is here for more than 3 years. Unbelievable transformation started last year to what he is now. Great leader, great role model, works hard. and maybe for him as much the fact of how he handled the Judkins situation, I think exemplifies what you want your team to be about.
100%.
So I think that's a big piece. Probably how Emeka has handled, the emergence of J.J. Smith and everything and how good he is and how much attention. And Emeka's never been a big me guy.
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't think he wants that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's been good with it. Like, you handle that. Cody kind of personifies to me what persistence is in the program. And I so often tell a lot of these guys here, they start getting in their second, third year, and you're backed up behind other guys. And I always tell them a story about Will Allen, who ended up being a vital piece of our 2002 national championship team, but didn't start. He was our nickel back, and then you played nickel 30% of the time. He was behind two guys who were 4-year starters, 3-time All-American, and Mike Doss and Donnie Nicky, guys that played, Donnie played 8 years in the NFL, and he didn't get his chance till his senior year. And then when he did, he was really good, and he was a leader, and he was everything you wanted to be, end up being an All-American, gets drafted and plays 13 years, whatever, in the NFL. And I'm like, if you keep doing everything right, keep showing up, like, it generally works out for you in life to some degree. Now, to what degree, I can't tell you, but I know Cody Simon, there was some frustration, and he talked about that. He was very emotional when he was given the Block O award because, he's like, this is not how I planned my career going. But he's smart. He played a lot last year in relief of Tommy and Cade Tommy and Steele, because he could play both linebacker positions. And I was grateful that he came back. So I was like, this is going to be your defense now. Yeah. Over all this time, like, it is going to finally be yours. Despite all the talented players around you and how good Sonny is and JT, like, you will be the man in the middle on this defense, that they're going to be reliant upon you to be able to direct traffic, you and Lathan. And so to see that happen to him and everything that went through, and then Lathan with a lot of the injuries, like, that's why those guys come back, and that's why you're happy they're here.
Jay-Z?
Yeah, I like the picks. I used to mention the quarterback being. I don't mind that they didn't go that route here. I like the fact that these guys have all been in this program, coming back for a big year to unfinished business type stuff. And I think that was the right way to go about it. Even though typically quarterbacks always kind of just get put into that, there was a competition going on, so there was that. But he's also been here for under a year, and it's like to see the kids, homegrown kids, not homegrown per se, but they maybe not all from Ohio, but they've been
developed here.
Yeah, they've been in the program and they've been around, and they came back. They wanted to do something special this year, and I think that's awesome. And I mean, Trey, I saw that. Trey might not be the starting running back this year. I mean, I know they're both 1A, 1B, whatever, but that's pretty cool because you can tell that he's selfless and saying, I just want I want to be the best team. I want to be the best teammate. And so I think that's really cool for him, and that's a nice little nod for him. And, it's there's so many good dudes on this team, it seems, just from being around. They couldn't really go wrong. And I think those are 4 strong guys.
Yeah, I mean, quarterback, you need to be anointed captain, right? It just comes with the job, right?
You better be one.
Basically.
Yeah, you have to be one.
Yeah. No matter what,
whether you're voted one or not, right? I was actually looking up when Bob was talking the last time an offensive lineman was a captain. It was Thayer in 2021.
Also Blocko.
Blocko. Yeah.
Massillon, Ohio.
I think maybe you'd like to see someone up front get that right, help set the tone.
So I thought Donovan might be that guy.
Yeah, I guess he would be the only, him or Fryer are probably the only 2 that it could be.
Yeah,
there's some newer guys there and younger guys too, but it's not a major deal that there's not a captain. And who knows, if they decided they wanted 6 captains, maybe Donovan would be one. I would prefer them to keep that list shorter.
Maybe 9. Why not?
Yeah, no more 9 captains.
Let's don't go back to that.
Like 4 is probably the max, I think.
Yeah,
There's times people ask, I go somewhere between 3 and 5, and I go, really? I'd ask my dad about this because he coached high school football for a long time, and he was always players vote. He's like, this is your team, not the coaches. He goes, generally you see some sort of delineation. Maybe it's after 3, maybe it's after 4, but there's like this, and then there's kind of a drop. And he goes, if that's 5, I'll push it to 5. If there's like 5 guys that kind of represent an equal number of votes, if there's 4, it's 4. He's like, whatever that number is. He's like, if it's 2 and there's no one else really out there, then that's what we've got is 2 guys. Yeah. He's like, but it should be representative of what the team kind of feels. And that's the thing. Like Donovan, I think could have been a guy like even Fryer, but that when you have a veteran team like this, you have a lot of leadership.
Somebody's going to get left
and that's
out,
what, like JT, it's like, well, Jack got it. JT, you're not going to have two guys in the same position group. You know, Lathan, another guy, Denzel, potentially. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 other guys that if you would have said that they were nominated captain, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I just hope that those guys don't feel diminished by this. And Ryan addressed that. It's like leadership captain is a title, but leadership is not. So you can still lead even though you're not a captain. And that I think that everybody has their own personality and how they're going to handle stuff.
Well, and everyone within their own unit is going to have an opportunity to do that as
Power
well.
of the unit.
They have leadership council, too, that expands beyond the 4 captains, right?
Absolutely. It's like the Politburo.
That's like 16 to 18. There's people from every single unit, and you have to take that responsibility. And I think that they've got a good group. I'm glad that it's not 8. That got distracting and confusing, and that's too many chef
cooks
situation.
in the kitchen.
Yeah, so
Cody looked pretty sweet. Exactly. You know? Cody looked pretty sweet, though, in his Blanco jersey. I would have never thought that before, but
you like it at linebacker.
I like Xavier looked good in it, and it started to grow on me because
I thought Coop wore it well.
Coop wore it well. But it was so new. I think now that it's been around a little bit, that it feels more natural.
Do they have to wear the 0 or the?
Well, they couldn't.
They don't.
You could just put the patch on
if you don't want to change.
But I mean, it's kind of an honor.
Like, 100%.
Representative Bill Willis and everything that he went through, and it was pretty good. Yeah, Ryan talked a lot about that and outlined it for the guys, so it was important. A little history lesson while they did it too.
Yeah, made a great weekend for Ohio State. You can make a great Tuesday for yourself at Roosters.
You can see one is already cracked open for the.
It's like it's got a little pinky that comes off the side here, like
absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know you could see inside of it.
Oh yeah,
that's even better.
Holy cheese is pulling off.
$3 all day long. Appetizer Thursday at Roosters. It's going to be the Mott sticks, crispy on the outside, gooey on the inside. Would you say you took me by surprise when you let me inside of you?
Well, we were just looking inside. So
yes, looking inside.
Inside of the cheese sticks, it's delightful.
Delicious.
Also, somewhere around here, there's a
QR code. Berm's got it floating around.
It's going around the screen. What's that for, Bob?
If you go and register there, or you could go to roosterswings.com if you can't catch it, like Pokemon's. You can register. They've got the Buckeye giveaway. There's going to be four giveaways, I believe.
There's a lot.
There's a lot going on.
3 or 4. The first
Just
one is early October.
You're going to win something.
The first one's early October. There's going to be, and they're going to give away like three or 4 things at a time.
Including a trip to the Oregon game.
Trip to Oregon is going to be in the first one. So go there, register. As Berm always says, vote early, vote often. There was 87 million people that voted. In the last one.
New record.
New record.
We are setting a record every single week because of the QR code. Thanks to you all for scanning it and registering at roosterswings.com. We're going to take a break. We have Optimistic Berm. I don't know how optimistic he is. He was pretty downtrodden on the podcast daily this morning.
Angry Berm?
We'll see where his mindset is.
Recruiting Berm?
We'll get a vibe check with Berm when we get back in here. Thanks to Bill Landis for joining us on the first half of the show. We'll be back with the second. Right in here at Roosters, Fun Casual Joint.
Roosters has been so fortunate. We just want to be able to give some of that back to the community.
They donate to organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long time.
They always go above and beyond to help support our foundation to further help veterans.
It's just a wonderful feeling to know that Roosters supports the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Welcome back in to the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters. Berm is here. Optimistic Berm here?
Sure,
Pessimistic
why not?
Berm? Who's here? What's the verdict?
Berm's a great.
How's the week?
Realistic.
He's a tech whiz, Berm.
Realistic Berm. I mean, what are we doing? We're here.
Berm.
We're having good food. We're having good, fun, casual conversation. Why be down about it?
That's a great point. I just love
You
that
know what?
mentality.
The thing is, Ohio State's not going to land every single recruit in the
What?
country. Because they can't. There's a scholarship limit. So they can't.
There
land
is?
everyone.
I think that
But
was.
if we could get Uncle Phil Knight to support our NIL, and then you have a limitless Scrooge McDuck vault of cash.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's going to help in every case. I mean, yeah.
Listen,
Limitless money does seem to help.
Yeah.
Austin once told me one time, you can put a price on anything.
Yeah. He said there's nothing he won't do for money.
It's just the equality.
The thing is, inside of the Woody
It's
Hayes
$1 million man. Everyone's got a price.
inside of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, there's the circle of care wall there. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's what it's called.
Circle of trust.
The block O of life.
No, the circle of care.
Yeah,
It is the circle.
We're in the tree of trust.
One of them talks about Nike and how they have the largest Nike contract in the country, which is cool, except for Philadelphia, it's not just handing them actual money. They're actually, having
Their coupons.
Could they threaten
IOUs
to go to Under Armour to get more money from Phil Knight?
Maybe. I still don't know if he's going to divvy it up, for NIL-related specifics, but...
We don't, not from Nike. We just want money from you.
So
Phil.
let's talk positives. Let's talk positives.
Just you.
Ohio State has the number 1 ranked recruiting class in the country.
That's positive.
We are 10 days away from the season opening. 12 days? I'm not good at math.
12 days.
12 days at math. 12 days of
12 days of math.
12 days of math.
We're less than 2 weeks away from the season starting. And what
that's number
looks
two,
like
so.
a team that could win a national championship.
That's number 3.
Why are we focused on everything that's on the little things that annoy you?
Getting in the minutia.
No, minutia is important, but let's keep it in context.
So will you dispel a myth then?
I'd love to try.
Well, maybe it's not a myth. I tend to believe it is. I believe that Justin Fry, I think, is a pretty good offensive line coach. From what I have watched him coaching on the field, I believe that I think he's a pretty good recruiter. And then someone was like, "Well, we haven't had an elite offensive line." Well, that's not what the internet tells me. And so with that, I'm like, every one of these decisions, they're all idiosyncratic. They're individualized decisions. It's not like there's some general belief that he's not good or can't land recruits. I think there's a specific reason for kind of each guy. Do you believe that to be the case? Do you think that he is a well-equipped recruiter and a good offensive line coach?
As I said about David Sanders on this morning's podcast daily, if he lived in Pittsburgh, I think he'd be committed to Ohio State. He lives in Charlotte.
Or Pitt.
No, he would have picked Ohio State. If the decision was Ohio State or Tennessee and he lived in Pittsburgh, I think he would have picked Ohio State. I think the final piece, the overarching theme of his recruitment was they wanted to stay close to home. They got everything they could have wanted out of Tennessee.
Why couldn't Ryan just tell him like Chip or Brian Kelly and say we were family?
I mean, I think he tried, but the reality is when you have a family that lives 3 hours away from a place and now they have a new house there, or allegedly, then you can
got nice seats for the game.
You can make things happen easier. The issue that I have with this recruitment specifically, and what I think is becoming a recurring issue for Ryan Day and for Justin Fry, is that there is a lack of ability to sell Ohio State's offensive line development. So why are they doing that so poorly? That's a legitimate
Dwan
question.
Jones has looked pretty good. I mean,
we got
people
all
say
kinds
this.
of
I'm
guys
like,
in
they
the
have
league.
2 tackles that are NFL
that started
starters.
as rookies.
Rookies and good, like not bad.
They have 10 offensive linemen in the NFL, which I believe is 4th amongst all college teams right now with active NFL offensive linemen. There are things that they're doing very well, but what they're not doing very well, clearly, is selling the development plan on the offensive line. That is not the case at wide receiver. It's not the case at defensive back. It's not the case even now with James Laurinaitis at linebacker selling, hey, I did this. I can get you here. Yes.
Do we just not have the money?
It's not about money.
No, it's not. Okay.
This is not about money.
I don't see how any offensive lineman would say, man, look at all the people they have. I want to go be on a team that's going to go try and win a national championship every
Again,
year.
this is why I think that
blows my mind.
Do they know? Do you think Justin knows that Orlando Pace's son is on the team?
I think
could we get him maybe to come in at a time? Like, I mean, that seems like he did get in the Hall of Fame. I think for offensive line.
I mean, there's been I think there's only been 2 offensive linemen in history that have been Heisman finalists, and they were both Ohio State.
Hicks and Pace.
Orlando Pace.
And Hicks is no longer with us, so we've got one still.
Now, again, and Bill brought up a point this morning. Like you can probably poke holes in Justin Fry's personal development of these offensive linemen. Because when he was at UCLA, it's not like he had a litany of guys being drafted. But
they also didn't have great stock to start with.
But if you are watching Ohio State's current offensive line, if you talk to Paris Johnson, if you talk to DeJuan Jones, they will tell you Justin Fry played a major part in their development and their progress. Now, probably wouldn't have mattered for Paris Johnson. He's going to be a top 5 pick no matter what. Before he was entered college, I said, okay, he's going to be a top 10 pick in 3 years. Like that.
You did.
There's some guys that you just know that's going to happen. If you look at Josh Simmons and you don't see what Ohio State has done for him in the last year and 2 months, then you're insane. But
Buckeye.
It's not about money. That's the
fair
reality. What I think that there are
I would
times
rather it be about money because I can't move
Right.
the world.
No, that's 100% correct.
Can't relocate Columbus.
That's 100% correct.
Nor should you.
I think it would be a lot easier to answer it if in this case it was about money. It's not. Ohio State had a very generous NIL presentation ready for David Sanders and his family, but when all things are equal, and that's the problem. Like if Tennessee was able to convince him that all things were equal between Ohio State and Tennessee, that's an Ohio State selling problem. That's now whether that's being I don't want to say lazy, whether that's being inarticulate, whether that's being
inarticulate. I like that.
Whether that's being lazy, I don't know. But the point is, clearly they were able to convince the Sanders family that Tennessee and Ohio State were on the same plane.
Have they been watching
that
football?
Cookout must have been pretty nice.
So if that's how you view it, which again maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Maybe it's just the fact that they now have
direct flights from Charlotte,
reportedly
like
a much
day.
closer, a much nicer secondary home in Nashville. I don't know.
We had to get a guy by the name of Derek Morris.
Yes.
Derek Morris.
Now it was
from North Carolina. Also.
From North Carolina. Now he did end up at NC State.
Yes, he did not spend much time at Ohio State, and his father's job that he got in Columbus, I don't think lasted very long either.
And I heard that they may or may not have lived on Muirfield up here. That was the rumors. I don't know. But
the Derek Morris recruitment is actually a funny parallel to this because he was a 5-star offensive tackle out of North Carolina and an example of there's no such thing as a sure thing when it comes to recruiting.
Oh, he played like 2 years at NC State. And
right. You would have expected him as a top 5 offensive lineman. He's all the things that David Sanders is in this cycle. And he is a perfect example of things can go wrong if you put too much invested into one person.
Oh, yeah. I would never give an offensive lineman a boatload of NIL to start with because that's just money sitting on the side.
I think, especially because for the first year,
they're not going to play.
They're not going to be out there.
And especially someone who's not only not going to probably play the first year, but someone who's going to be 8 hours from home. The odds of him deciding to leave after a year are very high. That being said, Ohio State was willing to do that in this instance. They were willing to pay David Sanders, from my understanding, more money than the rest of the offensive line currently makes.
Wow.
Or close to.
So it's not a money issue.
Okay, this was not a money issue. This was a closer to home issue.
Proximity. Well, you got to pay for the love sometimes.
And
it's like going to the champagne room.
Again,
if that was in your house, then it would be fine. But you had to go somewhere else.
Yeah, you can't go to someone else's champagne room. Yeah. Clearly.
Well, you got to pay more for it.
I'd hope so. You get what you pay for. But no, does that mean that there isn't a problem with Justin Fry's recruiting right now? Yes, there is a problem. I don't know exactly what it is. I do know that there are.
Do you think the hand, foot, and mouth scared him off?
I don't think that had.
Are you sure?
Well, I don't think he was around for that, Bob.
How do you know there wasn't inklings of it beforehand?
I guess that's true.
Do you think we're offering enough offensive linemen?
See, this.
Do you want to offer people who can't play here?
This is the problem. Like,
there's got to be some good.
There are,
linemen, but if you're saying I'm only going to offer 10 guys because those are the only best ones,
Ohio
and we don't
State's
get any
offered
of them.
like 27 offensive linemen in the class of 2025.
Yeah, that's a lot. It seems like a lot.
Here's the problem. It's not that they're not offering enough. It's that they're not getting the guys they offer.
Yeah, fair.
Like, that's the problem. So it doesn't matter. Ohio State today.
You need bodies, though. I mean,
sure. But it's Ohio State. You're going to get them. If they want plan Bs and plan Cs, Ohio State can offer them today.
Yeah, fair.
And have no.
You can go down to Walgreens and get a plan B.
Right. Look, Gabe Van Sickle. Gabe Van Sickle's a perfect example of this. Right?
Is that a real person?
He's a freshman offensive lineman, number 58. You've probably seen him at.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Listen, Schlegels creates nicknames for all these guys. So
Van Winkle.
Like, I don't know the real names sometimes.
Gabe Van Sickle is a 2-time major heavyweight champion in Michigan in wrestling. He was he was a very good football player in high school up at Coopersville High School near Traverse City. He had been committed to Northwestern for months. Ohio State said, well, we're going to see him in September, offered him in October. He committed a week later. Like, they can do that. So the problem is not that they're not offering enough guys. The problem is that they're not getting the guys they offer. The problem is you look at Georgia and Alabama, and this is the primary example people are using. Alabama has 5 commitments, but it's like from five-star offensive linemen. So they're getting the guys they offer. It doesn't matter that they offered 60 of them. They're not taking the 60. If they're taking the 5 of their top 7. So why is Ohio State not able to do that? That is the question, because Ohio State should be able to do that. So where is the disconnect? And it's not about how many they offered. They are going to have no problem finding two offensive linemen between here and December that want to play at Ohio State. So they will end up this class with 4 offensive linemen. But the problem is for Ohio State fans in specific is that if they offered those guys in January, let's go back to the class of 2020, for example. Okay, so you have Paris Johnson in that class. All right, great player.
You might be doing what you're saying, Berm, is you might be doing a little 130, 145 pass on a Saturday night to try to maybe pick up some stragglers.
What I'm saying is
you're not getting your 10 o'clock.
I'm saying at 2:15. I'm saying at 2:15. At 2:15, you can get pretty much whoever you're looking for, right? So
within reason.
In the class of 2020, Ohio State made a calculated decision to offer Trey LaRue, Jacob James very early. Okay, they offered them in January of 2019, right? Okay. So 2 guys that Ohio State could have offered a year later and landed without any issue. By taking those guys, they ended up with Grant Toutant in that class, Jacob James, Trey LaRue, and then you had Luke Whippler, Paris Johnson, and Josh Fryer. Okay, so you have a 6-man offensive line class. It's a pretty good class. Mm-hmm. But there's 3 guys that couldn't play at Ohio State, no matter how much you wanted them to. So is it worth it every year to take 6 guys and
just have 3 there? Yeah.
The reality moving forward is that it probably is worth it to do that, because you're going to be up to 105 scholarships.
When you don't know who you're
you can offer 105. You don't have to.
Well, but they're going to, especially when it comes to offensive line.
Is it better to do that? They're getting a sophomore out of the portal.
Well, that's the other question. And I think that there's a real argument to say, why not go get a guy who started Division I college football somewhere as a freshman?
It has the raw ability. Then he's a year older, more mature.
It's still going to cost less than a 5-star.
It's more of a sure thing, too.
So, I mean, these are all the conversations, but it doesn't make anyone feel better when Ohio State's losing recruits in the last week to Georgia Tech and
Georgia Tech is.
But it makes perfect sense from an outside. It makes perfect sense why Josh Petty committed to Georgia Tech and not Ohio State to anybody that's not an Ohio State fan. Yeah. Like, it makes perfect sense.
I try to explain that to people. Like, everybody wants something different. How could you? Why would you want this? Why would you want to go to somewhere else other than Roosters when you have Roosters right here?
Absolutely.
I don't know, but I am not inside of their head.
Yeah, we can't vouch for it.
And that's the problem.
Some people.
There's people out there that maybe don't want to be the best. That would rather be the big fish in the small pond. That don't want to compete.
And again, a guy like Josh Petty, who the rumor and the number that I'd heard was $800,000 a year for Joshua Petty, who's a borderline 5-star offensive lineman, maybe not even a true tackle if you judge by what some people have seen him say. Mm-hmm. He might be an interior guy. He's probably a swing guy, can play either side, but he's from Atlanta. He is 260 pounds. He's a couple of years away from being able to contribute. He is extremely interested in the academic side of things.
Yeah, we don't want those.
This is
we need some shankability, not a bookworm.
If Ohio State were to pay that amount of money for Joshua Petty instead
sit on the bench for 2 years.
Sit on the bench for 2 years and then transfer after 2 years because he didn't play and he's homesick and he's got a degree and he wants to go get his master's at Stanford, then what is it for? So Ohio State fans are correct in always wanting the best players in the country and expecting that they should be here because there's nothing Ohio State lacks when it comes to opportunity for these kids. But to assume that every kid wants the same thing or that every family wants the same thing it's not real life.
Well, when those checks at Tennessee bounce, David Sanders can just rejoin.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Well, you know, jump in the portal.
That is also the reality. We're talking. These conversations are now going to be an annual thing. Like it's what does it mean to lose a 5-star offense? If Ohio State, and we talked about it on the Daily, if that money that was being earmarked for David Sanders can now be directed to keeping Josh Simmons for another year, for example, why would that not be more valuable?
Well, 100%. Or a guy who is more developed in the portal that can come in and play more right away and only needs that 10 pounds as opposed to 50.
Yeah,
and if you know now,
he needs to put on a good 40 pounds.
And if Ohio State knows right now that projecting ahead, they're probably going to need 2 starting tackles for next year.
Yeah. You can do what
Word
Notre
gets
Dame,
out.
You can do what Notre Dame did, and they got Riley Leonard during the game last year when they played him.
Word gets
Just
out.
whisper.
Word gets out. You're gonna come.
This is permissible contact. We're out here on the
You
field.
shake your hand,
Everyone
and
can see
inside here is an envelope with a wallet and my number.
Thank you. Thank
There
you.
you go.
We'll talk to you
Give me
later.
a call.
It's a golden envelope.
Okay. So that we have really.
I think it's an important conversation, but I
It
don't know
is.
that there's a
There's no good answer.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no
no,
definitive
yeah.
answer.
It's not as black and white as people want to make it out. Yes, they need to offer. They don't need to offer more players. What they need to do is do a better job of building relationships with kids they haven't offered, so that when they do offer them, you maybe are not trying to make up so much ground.
Yeah, at the end of a
Maybe,
recruitment.
and this is something I think is Ohio State is guilty of across the board position recruiting wise.
Hubris.
It might be a little too arrogant in thinking that we're Ohio State. But the world has changed in the last 5 years.
Things change, Mox.
Exactly.
Yes.
No one's showing up in a whipped cream bikini anymore. Okay?
It'd be pretty sweet if they did.
Pretty sweet if you did.
But they aren't.
Okay.
And Ohio
I
State's
feel
not.
better now, Berm. We talked our way through this.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that go into this. but
Positive Berm.
Berm's been out here with positivity and therapizing for the Ohio State.
Do better
recruiting
at building
fans.
at building relationships when you haven't offered,
Yeah.
and then find a better way to convince people or show people what your development plan is. It's not that hard. Again, I talked about Michigan has had the best offensive line in the country the last 3 years.
And they did.
They have 2 offensive linemen committed. One of them is Ohio State would not have said yes to. The other one is a kid from 40 minutes away from Ann Arbor. Like Penn State has 2 offensive linemen committed. The best player in Pennsylvania is committed to Alabama. Like I think that there are, and he's an offensive lineman. Like there's a lot of problems, and it's not an Ohio State issue. It is a Big Ten selling issue. Like you can get developed here in the Big Ten, and I don't think kids believe it.
Are we not pushing the hashtag developed here enough anymore?
I know what's going on here.
That was
the Big
The rest
Ten
of the
isn't
Big
using
Ten
it.
isn't, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Just Ohio State alone.
So, I mean, yes, those are all. The problem is I think people get confused excuses and explanations. Okay?
Thank you for saying that.
Like,
There's a difference.
yeah, and this is not excuses. There is something Ohio State has to figure out, but it's that's the explanation. Like, whatever that is, whoever's not doing a good enough job selling it, if that's Justin Fry, then he won't be at Ohio State much longer. Like, that's the reality. Perry Eliano did a fine job coaching safeties the last 2 years. He did not do a good enough job closing on recruits, and he no longer works at Ohio State.
Rock it up.
He's
baby.
now working at Toledo, right? Like Justin Fry may very well finish this class with Carter Lowe, who's a 5-star offensive lineman, Jake Cook, who Ohio State fans should love. There's a very real chance that Javen McFadden, who's a high 4-star offensive tackle, offensive guard from Washington, D.C., will end up in this class. And I think Ohio State can flip Micah DeBow as a borderline 5-star who's committed to Alabama, right?
Is that the kid from Penn State?
No,
Pennsylvania?
that's a kid whose family's all from Cleveland, but he lives in Alabama.
Okay, let's bring him home.
It's like I think they believe that they have a real chance in that recruitment.
Can we get
If they finish with that group, that's a real damn good offensive line group.
I mean, there's a lot of
So
good
the world
players.
isn't ending.
But if they don't,
Then
who's
is.
next? That's the
The
problem.
world.
Okay, we need to get Pace, get Mangold's butt back here.
Yeah, what's going on? I mean,
Alex Boone.
Yeah,
Well, I just think
what's Nick doing?
you
Boon's
brought
in a
him.
good spot.
You brought him
Oh,
up,
good,
Bob.
okay.
Like all they had. Dewan Jones is the perfect example of this.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a development plan, like I mentioned this on the Daily with Berm as well. It's like 3-star borderline prospect. Ohio State even said it's going to take time. You come on, we're going to get you to that level. He did that way ahead of time. But you still had Mickey Marotti. You had them reworking his body to get him down under 400 pounds and find a playable weight. You have all those things that still existed in the program.
Still
and then
had
Justin Fry came in,
nutritionist, everything. Else.
to finish off the development. And Dewan Jones would be more than happy to outline all that.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like people always get caught up too. I feel like offensive line is the toughest area to recruit. Probably outside quarterback, I would put in there a little bit as well, but the development of it is so because it's a long time. You very rarely have a guy come in and play right away, and so it's the development of it. And like Nick Mangold wasn't a crazy highly recruited guy. Alex Boone came in, played early, but still had some development. You look at
But those are different times.
Andrew Norwell, even Andrew Norwell. That was 10 years ago. Corey Lindsey, you look at Corey Lindsey and Whippler, those guys don't. I'm not putting a 5-star tag on those guys and saying they're really good. I mean, Corey Lindsey, when he first got here, he was a bad guy on Urban Meyer's list. Everyone never admitted now. But John Simon always reminds him he called him one of the dope smoking a-holes. Let's go. And then he's a great human being and best center in the NFL for 5 years.
Charles Bentley has been pretty active on Twitter in the last couple of weeks talking about Ohio State offensive line stuff and how he wouldn't have been recruited in this era to Ohio State, which is true. But also in 1999, Ohio State was allowed to lose 6 games in a season. Okay, like
no, Coop got fired for that.
The world was different. The next year he got fired. Not like we don't live in that world anymore where every third year you're allowed to go 8-4. Like you can't have that. You can't have the developmental path that you used to. Now again, maybe hopefully with this 105 scholarship limit, maybe you're going to find 3 extra offensive linemen from Ohio every year who you say we're going to take you and build you out.
We're going to pump you up
because there are really good players around the state that don't have the time to develop because they're being
wrestle
pushed
me
out. Exactly.
Wrestle me. Just go at them every day.
Something has to change, but I don't know that it's so simple as offer more guys.
Well, fair, yeah.
Which is no, because that's what
I know. I've heard a lot of solutions.
Yeah, I know 100%. I'm just like I don't know what the answer is, but
one of the things because I knew the proximity piece. I'm like, well, if proximity is the issue, I don't have an answer outside of Doctor Strange. We get them little portals and just jump right back and forth. You want to go home? Shoo. There you go. We'll see you in 2 hours.
It's true. Like it's an hour and 25-minute flight from Charlotte to Columbus, but you still have to drive to the airport. You still have to get around a car. Like, or you can
take your helicopter to the airport to your private jet and fly that down.
Or you hop in a car and you drive 3 hours to your new house in Knoxville, where you stay for the week because your son is on campus there. Like those are little things that make a difference for families that want to be around their children. If you're one of those families who likes your kid and you want to be around him, then maybe that helps.
I would also tell parents, you don't need to be around your college kid that much. Let them grow up and let them be a man.
Let them live
and
a little bit.
Make their own decisions. Help them. Maybe they make a mistake or two, but we can course correct that.
See them on Saturdays.
We don't need
take
to
them to
be
dinner
there.
after the game. And
so this is something I posited for a while.
See you guys. I'm going to get drunk.
You guys got to leave. We're going out.
Something I posited for a while, and you can probably speak to this, being around a lot of them all your life. Offensive linemen are big mama's boys. They don't like to leave home, except for Alex Boone.
Alex Boone, TJ Downing. There's a handful of dudes.
Okay, those are Northeast Ohio guys.
Norwell. There's a handful of dudes.
I don't know.
I think the ones that these guys know might be a little bit different than the recent examples coming to Ohio State.
Norwell was the animal. Call him the white rhino.
Well, even when I started covering this team, Norwell, Jack Muhort,
another guy.
They're out there.
There's not those dudes out there anymore, man.
Some guys.
My guy Reed Fragel, they weren't just all staying at home on Saturday nights.
They were also going to college 2 hours away from home.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. There is truth to that. So
okay, well, we spent a lot of time.
We won a national championship with Jacoby Bourne at center, and that's not a knock on Jacoby Bourne because he outplayed his physical ability probably as much as any human being I've ever seen.
And he would not be recruited by Ohio State today.
1,000% he wouldn't be.
But
he could be in the 105 scholarship
era. They tried to get rid of him there.
But he could be and very well would be in the 105 scholarship era. And I think that will eliminate some of these discussions. Yeah. It will not cause Ohio State to all of a sudden start signing 5-star offensive linemen that are from parts unknown. Like that is a problem that Ohio State has had forever because there just aren't a lot of them that exist. And
I thought it was the quarterback problem.
What? Who?
I thought we could never get like the elite. We didn't have the NFL quarterbacks, so that was always like
that was a long. Yeah,
and then Ryan Day showed up, and the offense was different. Again, this offense, they're having no problem putting offensive linemen into the NFL. So, for whatever reason, that's not translating,
and they won't have a problem doing it after this season either.
Where 3 guys are probably going to be drafted from this line, maybe 4 if we count Seth McLaughlin. So you're talking. There isn't an argument that they aren't developing offensive linemen. I mean. For whatever reason, it's just not landing, and I don't understand.
Taylor Decker's pretty good.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
I also think that
so's Jonah Jackson, who we can count.
Yeah,
halfway.
I count him. I love Jonah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a lot of time that we spent on the future of the Ohio State offensive
line.
We're
an offensive line-driven program.
Not that much.
That's what we want to be.
On a group that still hasn't definitively named a starter, although it does look like Tegra Shabola is going to be right guard. But we'll get into all that next Monday back in here at Roosters when it is going to be game week.
I'm so good at math.
Look at Quinshawn. I just love watching him.
Figured it out. So can't wait for that. We'll be a lot more focused on what's going to happen heading into the Ohio State season opener, Ohio State and Akron, when we get back in here next Monday in our, I can't call
our new home on Henderson Road.
It's our new home at Henderson Road until we can go back to the old one, which is going to be a while. But we appreciate you watching. hanging out with us. Thanks to Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, Justin Zwick and Bobby Carpenter, and Nicole Cox and the whole team at Roosters for having us in here. I'm Austin. We'll be back here next Monday. It'll be game week. We'll see you then.